You know that feeling when you hear someone speak and you're just completely hooked? The kind of speech that leaves you feeling fired up, maybe even a little changed? Well, it turns out that's not just random luck or magic. There's actually an architecture behind it, a kind of secret playbook that the most powerful communicators use. And we're about to take a peek inside. I mean, just listen to this line. You've probably heard it a million times, but it's so much more than just a string of words, right? It has this rhythm, this weight to it that's made it echo for decades. It's wild how some phrases just seem to stick with us like that, landing with this almost magical quality. So the big question is it really magic or is it a craft? Something that can be learned, practiced, and mastered? Is there a master plan that anyone, and I mean anyone, can follow to become a more effective speaker? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. So let's flip open that playbook, shall we? All right, the first rule in the playbook, and honestly, the most important one, might actually surprise you. Here it is. Effective communication is never really about you, the speaker. It is always 100% about the audience. To really connect with people, you have to get where they're coming from, and that goes way deeper than you might think. Okay, get this. In a culture like the United States, we see an idea as personal property. So plagiarism isn't just cheating, it's basically stealing. But in some collectivist cultures, the group is way more important than the individual. So the very idea of owning a thought can seem kind of weird. Sharing knowledge is what matters most. Now, just imagine trying to give a speech on intellectual property without knowing which one of those audiences you're talking to. And these cultural differences touch everything, even something as basic as time. There's this great story about an American professor in Brazil who was totally baffled when his 10 a.m. class just casually strolled in around 11, not worried at all. See, for him, time was this thing you could save or spend, like money. But for his students, it was much more fluid. And here's the real kicker. If you don't get your audience's worldview from their values to how they think about time, your message, no matter how brilliant, is just going to fall flat. Okay, so you've done your homework, you know your audience. Now what? Now it's time to actually build your case. This is the blueprint for your speech, and every good blueprint needs a solid foundation. And in speaking, that foundation is compelling evidence. But here's the thing. Even cold, hard facts need a little help to land with a human audience. Take a look at this number, $17.5 trillion. That was the U.S. national debt at one point. It's huge. It's an enormous number. But what does it actually mean? For most of us, it's so big that it's just abstract noise. It doesn't really connect. But what if I told you that it's a stack of $1 bills that would reach past the planet Uranus? Boom. Suddenly you can see it, right? The abstract becomes concrete, and suddenly it's unforgettable. And that is the technique. You translate massive, confusing data into a picture people can actually hold in their heads. And this idea of making things concrete is just as important when you choose your examples. You could use a hypothetical, imagine you're a latchkey kid, and that's great for explaining a concept. But if you want to really persuade someone, nothing, and I mean nothing, beats a real story. Something that actually happened has a kind of gravity and truth to it that you just can't fake. And of course, for the ultimate knockout punch of credibility, you bring in the experts. But notice how this is done. It's not just a random quote. It's from Peggy Bass, who has a PhD in special education. That little detail is absolutely crucial. By stating her credentials, you're telling the audience exactly why they should listen to her. You're building trust. So you know your audience, you've built a rock-solid argument with great evidence. Now for the fun part. Now we add the sparkle. This is where you switch hats from being an architect to being an artist. It's all about choosing the specific words that make your message not just heard, but remembered. I mean, does it get more iconic than this? Lincoln could have just said, a representative government. And yeah, that's accurate. But by repeating the people 3 times, he creates this rhythm, this cadence. It's like a drumbeat that drives the point home in a way that's powerful, musical, and totally unforgettable. Or look at this absolutely beautiful line from Chief Seattle. He's using a simile, a comparison. He doesn't just say, there were a lot of us. No, he paints a picture. He wants you to see his people covering the land just like waves on the ocean. Language like this, using metaphors and similes, turns a simple fact into a feeling. It creates a movie in your listener's mind. And this isn't just about famous historical speeches. The words we choose have a huge impact on our world right now.
A perfect modern example of this is the Ban Bossy campaign. The whole point of the campaign was this. When a boy takes charge, we praise him. We call him a leader. But when a girl does the exact same thing, she often gets labeled as bossy. It's a powerful example of how our word choices can reinforce stereotypes. And Beyoncé's response? I'm not bossy. I'm the boss. That's a masterclass in flipping the script and reclaiming the power of language. And all of this, understanding the audience, building your case, choosing your words, it brings us to the final and maybe the most critical part of the playbook. Because these tools of persuasion are incredibly powerful. And like any powerful tool, they can be used to build things up or to tear them down. So the final test for any speaker is always an ethical one. First, you've got to watch out for spinning. This is the tricky art of telling the truth, but not the whole truth. So imagine a speaker talks about how break-ins in one neighborhood are skyrocketing, but they conveniently forget to mention that the overall crime rate in the city has actually dropped. They're not technically lying, but they are absolutely bending reality to fit their narrative. Then there's pandering. This is basically telling people exactly what they want to hear instead of what they might need to hear. It's all about being popular, not about being truthful. It's playing to people's deepest fears or their wildest hopes, not to lead them, but just to get their applause. This leads us to a challenge that was laid down almost 2,000 years ago by a Roman teacher of rhetoric named Quintilian. He said that you can't be a good speaker unless you are first a good person. He believed that true eloquence and good character were completely intertwined. It's a pretty high bar, but it's a timeless goal for anyone who ever wants to stand up and speak. So the playbook is open. The secrets are out. You know you need to understand your audience, build a solid case, and choose words that have that extra sparkle. But the final page of that playbook, well, that's blank, because it ends with a question for all of us. Your words have power. The real question is, how are you going to use them?